Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let's start off. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. We meet again to continue with Surah Taubah. Let's start off the intentions for seeking knowledge and teaching. I intend to seek knowledge and to teach to benefit myself and to benefit others, to remind myself and to remind others, to profit myself and to profit others, to urge adherence to the book of Allah and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to invite to guidance and to guide that which is good, seeking the face of Allah, His pleasure, His closeness, His reward, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's continue on with our Fatiha. A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم نور بالقرآن بصري واشرح به صدري وأطلق به لساني واستعمل به بدني وقوي به جناني وأسرع به فهمي بحولك وقوتك فإنه لا حول ولا قوة إلا بك يا أرحم الراحمين. والصلاة على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين بفضل سبحانك ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Continue with Surah Taubah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We did verses 110 to 112 in the last lesson. The building they built will continue to trouble their hearts until their hearts get cut into pieces. And we understand this is the building of people without taqwa, right? And they built for the wrong reasons. And so it is going to be difficult for them. They'll be haunted by their bad intentions until they die. Get cut into pieces until they die. Allah is knowing and wise. He knows exactly what they are doing and is wise in His judgment. Allah bought from believers their persons and property. So Allah buy, that means Allah values these people, their persons and their property. They shall have the garden. So in exchange, Allah gives them the beauty of the garden in the next world. They fight in Allah's way, they slay and are slain. So these are the believers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They fight in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and some of them are killed, and some of them slay others, and some are slain. Promise by Allah in the Torah, the Injil, and the Quran. This is the promise. Allah has given this promise to all of the followers of the prophets of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, that if they obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they fight in the path of Allah, they sell themselves and their wealth for Allah, then they will be placed in Jannah. None is better in honoring their covenant than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, honoring their covenant. So Allah is the only one. If Allah makes a promise, Allah will abide by the promise. We should be happy with the pledge made. So Allah has promised us that we sell our souls, ourselves, and our hearts for our wealth for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then in exchange, you will get Jannah. And we should be happy that we have this is the pledge that we have made. The repentant ones, the worshippers, those who praise, those who fast, those who bow, those who prostrate, those who enjoin good and forbid evil, and who guard the limits of Allah, give good news to the believers. So Allah described those people, those who are always turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who are true slaves of Allah, always instead of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who keep on praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who fast, there's other meanings to that also, those who control themselves, those who are always willing to fight in the path of Allah, to do things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who bow, that means they ruku, those who sujood, those who enjoy good and forbid evil, and they got the limits of Allah, then they have good news. They are believers. All right, continue. Ma kana, ma is not, kana is was. Lin nabi, for the prophet. Right, li is jar, so we have the kasra here. Lin nabi, for the prophet, walladhina amanu, and those they believed, walladhina, all right, and this is of course attached to the li, but it is fixed at alladhina. We don't change the structure. No such thing as alladhinu, alladhini, it's just alladhina. Walladhina amanu, they believed. Iman here, so waw alif is a day, fi'il madi, past tense. Ayastaghfiru, that they seek forgiveness. Istighfar here, root word is ghafara, so it's an ista structure, and it's huruf nasab. So this is nasab sit with ya and waw alif. If it's waw nun, it's rafa. So ayastaghfiru lil mushrikin, for the polytheists. Mushriks are the polytheists. ما كان للنبي والذين آمنوا أن يستغفروا للمشركين ولو كانوا, walau, and even if walau, kanu, they were, well, I leave that at the end, uli qurba, uli is possessor of closeness, so that is actually close relatives. Ulil qurba, uli means possessor, all right, owner. Qurba is qarib, close. All right, ulil qurba, uli qurba, close relatives, min ba'di, from after ma tabayyana, what is clear. Ma is what, tabayyana, what is made clear. Lahum, for them. Annahum, that they, ashabul jahim. Ashab is plural of companion. Sahaba become ashab. Ashabul Jahim. This is in the jar state because it's an off structure. Companions of hell, or of the hell, actually. The companions of hell. You can put it as the here because the of the hell can go into here. The companions of hell. The companions of hell. ولو كانوا أولي قربى من بعد ما تبين لهم أنهم أصحاب الجحيم. All right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us not it be, The kana can be be also, if you find it much more proper in the language structure of English. Not it be for the prophet, or not it was for the prophet. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, and those who believe, that they seek forgiveness for the mushrik. So here it's an instruction that we, the prophet, in fact, is mentioned here, even the prophet cannot ask for forgiveness for the mushrik. The believers also cannot ask forgiveness for the mushrik. So this is an injunction from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Ahmad recorded that Ibn al-Musayyib said that his father Al-Musayyib said, when Abu Talib was dying, Rasulullah SAW went to him and found Abu Jahal and Abdullah ibn Abu Umayyah present. Rasulullah SAW said, Ay ammi, qul la ilaha illallah, kalimatan uhajju laka biha indallahi azza wa jalla. O uncle, say la ilaha illallah, a word concerning which I will plead for you with Allah, the exalted and most honored. Abu Jahl and Abdullah bin Abu Umayyah. So here we have Rasulullah SAW at the deathbed of his uncle, encouraging his uncle to say La ilaha illallah, not even Muhammad Rasulullah, just La ilaha illallah, believing in there is no God but Allah. That means denying of all other gods beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he told the uncle that if you just say La ilaha illallah, he will be able to use that, right, as a plea for him with Allah, the exalted, the most honored, Azza wa Jalla. So he is telling his uncle, you just say that and I'll do the rest. I'll ask Allah to make it easy for you in the next one. Abu Jahal and Abdullah bin Abu Umayyah said, oh, Abu Talib, would you leave the religion of Abdul Muttalib? So here they are always using affinity, closeness, tribal connection, right, to dissuade people from moving on to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abu Talib said, rather I will remain on the religion of Abu Muttalib. Rasulullah said, la astaghfiranna laka ma lam anhu anka. Surely I will invoke Allah for forgiveness for you as long as I'm not prohibited from doing so. So Rasulullah actually made a promise to seek forgiveness for his uncle, Abu Talib. This verse was revealed. وَلَوْ كَانُوا أُولِي قُرْبَى مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُمْ أَصْحَابُ الْجَحِيمِ. Even if they were close relatives from before, what is made clear to them that they are that it is made clear to them that they are the companions of hellfire. All right, now, this surah, as we know, is Surah Taubah. Surah Taubah is a surah very late in Meccan surah, Medina surah. And we are aware that Abu Talib passed away while Rasulullah was in Mecca, right? That is about the 11th year of Rasulullah's mission in Mecca. And so if this surah comes rather late in the 10th, 9th year, 8th year of 9th year Tabuk, very later in Medina, that means Rasulullah did have a number of years of seeking forgiveness for his uncle. وَلَوْ كَانُوا أُولِي قُرْبَى مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُمْ أَصْحَابُ الْجَحِيمِ. And even if they were close relatives from before, what is made clear for them? That they are the Ashabun Nar. Ali bin Abi Talha. So this means that it means when they die, we know that they die as mushriks, so they will be the inmates of hellfire. So you do not dua for them after they die. Before they die, we can make as much dua as we can to ask Allah to guide them. But once they die in the state of disbelief, in the state of being a mushrik, then we cannot dua for them anymore. Ali bin Abi Talha narrated that Ibn Abbas commented on this ayah. They used to invoke Allah for them until this ayah was revealed. Then they refrained from invoking Allah to forgive the dead among them, or would not stop from invoking Allah for the living among them until they die. So the dying is an indication that it is clearly they are against Allah subhanahu. They are mushriks, because it's clear in that sense. Those of polytheists, family members love them and sympathize with them. Muslims who had polytheist family members, they love them. Because they are family members, your cousins, your uncles, your brothers, your sisters. Rasulullah SAW, he loves Abu Talib a lot, right? And Abu Talib has been very good to him, has been very supportive of him. And he still wants to do for Abu Talib. If we seek forgiveness for them, then we consider their crime to be pardonable. So what is wrong with it is that we are not allowed to seek forgiveness for them. Then because when we are asking for forgiveness, then we are thinking that the crime of shirk is pardonable, whereas we know very well that it is not pardonable at all. There is no harm to cherish these things for the one who is loyal, though a sinner, but it is absolutely wrong in principle to love and sympathize with a person who is an open rebel and to consider his case as pardonable as it renders our own loyalty doubtful. So no harm to cherish these things. That means, yes, we have relatives and we love our relatives, right? Yeah, and we do care for them. But it's wrong in principle to love and sympathize with a person who is an open rebel. So it's against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He openly denounced Allah as the only God, right? And to think that he is pardonable, then that becomes wrong. Then we need to ask ourselves, what is our position as a Muslim who believes that there is only one God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are sort of rather apologetic with them, or even allowing them to be, we are such sort of okay with them believing in other gods. So we should not be in that position. We still can be relatives, we still can be kind to them, but we should not agree to their belief of other gods. Besides, it adds to the intensity of the crime if we pray for the forgiveness of a mushrik who is our near relative. That's why it emphasizes that. You see that you cannot pray for them because they are mushrik. They are going against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can they be forgiven? We can ask for them to be guided. But once they die, it's clearly that they are mushrik. We cannot pray for them anymore. For it means that we consider our relationship to be more valuable than the fulfillment of the implications of our loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that our love with Allah and His way is not wholly unalloyed, and that we desire that Allah should also be influenced by the love we have with His rebels and pardon our criminal kinsmen, even though He should throw the other criminals into the fire of hell. Right? This is what it means, right? If we consider their sin of being a shirk, the sin of shirk to be pardonable, then we are not really strongly attached to our loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, loyalty to our belief that Allah is the only God, and no one, we should be very angry that anyone would give partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why in the various verses of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even says, they give sons to Allah. Subhanallah, He is beyond all those things. How can you ever give sons to Allah? That's blasphemous. Right? So if for us to agree to sort of still care for them and think that Allah can forgive them, then that is wrong. Right? And we must be totally in love with Allah and strive for His way, and not wholly and unalloyed, and that we desire that Allah should also be influenced by. So it's not wholly. That means there are reservations to that love, because we believe that our love for our family members is very strong, despite the fact that they are rebels against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we are okay with Him throwing others into hellfire, but we hope our family members do not get thrown into the hellfire, although they are openly giving partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are not allowed to do that. Obviously, all such things are wrong and are against loyalty and sincerity, and the faith demands that our love for Allah and His way should be absolutely unalloyed, and that His friend should be our friend and His enemy our enemy. That should be the state of our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those who are against Allah, those who fight against Islam, should not be someone whom we love, right? After it's clear, Allah puts a disclaimer that after it's clear that they are against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means once they die. That's what it is. Once they die, that's it. We cannot pray for them because they believe in other than Allah, or they give partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is really blasphemous. That is why Allah has not said, do not pray for the forgiveness of the mushriks, but has instead warned, it does not behoove the Prophet ﷺ and those who have believed to pray for the forgiveness of the mushriks. So if the Prophet himself and those who believe should not pray for the forgiveness of the mushriks. So it's not an open instruction, but particularly the Prophet and the believers. The right thing for you is that you yourself should regard it as improper to show sympathy with our rebels and consider their crime as pardonable, Nay, you should not wait for any command from us about this. However, it is forbidden to show sympathy with the mushriks only in matters of faith. Right? As regards the human relations that demand the observance of the rights of one's relatives, of showing love, sympathy, and kindness, and cherishing fellow feelings with them, it is not forbidden at all, but it is considered to be a virtue. And that's why we have Ramlah, Sayyidatina Ramlah radiallahu anha, wife of Rasulullah sallallahu daughter of Abu Sufyan, right? Still entertaining her father. Of course, with some conditions, right? Her respect for Rasulullah sallallahu is very great. Her love and for Rasulullah sallallahu is very great. That she would not even allow her father to sit on the bed of Rasulullah sallallahu, which she finds it wrong because her father at that time was a mushrik. Father eventually became Muslim, but at that time she was kind. She took him in when he visited her, right? But she honored Rasulullah sallallahu and doesn't want to allow him, right, to actually sit in the places of Rasulullah sallallahu. So being kind is okay, but here it is not it's about asking forgiveness for them, knowing that they have given partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's clearly that after they have died. We must fulfill the worldly rights of a relative, whether he be a believer or a disbeliever. We should help him in affliction and give support to the needy ones and the orphans, and show all possible sympathy with a sick or wounded person, be he a Muslim or a non-Muslim. So that's our duty as Muslims, to care and to look after and to sympathize with people, all human beings, be them Muslims or non-Muslims. Seeking forgiveness for polytheists implies two things. First, the person seeking forgiveness assumes that the sin of giving partners, associating partners with Allah is forgivable, which is not forgivable. The one sin that is not forgivable is a sin of shirk. And the person has love and sympathy towards that polytheist. So there's two things here. So one is that the thing is forgivable, which is wrong for you to say to think that, and then love and sympathy towards those that give partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Firstly, a Muslim knows that associating or equating partners with Allah is a sin that Allah does not forgive unless a person abandons it completely and repents. As a Muslim knows that there's no way the sin can be forgiven. Secondly, considering Allah's declaration about the unforgivable nature of shirk, it is obvious that even if a Muslim seeks forgiveness for the polytheists, it's not going to make any difference at all. That means seeking of forgiveness for them is not going to, Allah is not going to forgive them. So you're doing something which is worthless. However, making such a dua indicates a seeker's heart is not at the right place. So you're not allowed to make the dua after it's clear that they are mushriks. He has not yet fully surrendered his emotions or aligned his likes or dislikes with what Allah wants. Allah says, right, we must go against, we must not have sympathy for the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to overcome that strong affection for those who gave partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. True Muslims love and hate are also for the sake of Allah and fully aligned with his wishes. This point was explained by Rasulullah when he said, whoever loves for Allah, hates for Allah, gives for Allah and refuses for Allah, has completed his faith. So you want to complete your faith, you got to love for Allah, you got to hate for Allah. Things which Allah doesn't like, doesn't agree, you should not agree to, you should not allow it to happen. And whatever you give for Allah. Whatever, if you refuse, you refuse for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah wants us to be tender and kind to all people until they rebel defiantly against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are obviously disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We see them disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we should not have interaction, we should not be seen as okaying his obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that case, we must be stern and strong, abandoning all emotional attachments. Be them a friend, be them a relative. As long as they disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need to cut ties with them. Cut in the sense that we must voice out against their actions, or tell them, I'm sorry, I cannot be with you because you are disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I feel very upset when people disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thirdly, by the time of this revelation, the polytheists had been given every opportunity to abandon shirk. So by this time of this surah, as we know, this is in the last, in the 8th year, 9th year of Rasulullah's mission in Medina itself. So it's almost complete. It's already 20 years of advising people to leave, giving partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they have been advised enough. So they have been approached every possible way through education, information, logical arguments, rational reasoning, historical lessons, reminders of heritage of Ibrahim and Ismail, warnings, empirical evidence in the form of the success of the Islamic movement, final ultimatum, so on and so forth. The Quran has, by that time, the Quran has shown them enough proof for them to accept that there is no God but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and yet they are not doing it. So the only people left were polytheists who had sealed their minds shut from receiving the guidance, were rebellious to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and were avowed enemies of the Islamic movement. So they are enemies, so you should take them as enemies. Seeking forgiveness for such people meant that the person was giving preference to his kinship sentiments over loyalty to truth, which is not befitting a Muslim or a believer. All right. وَمَا كَانَ اسْتِغْفَارُ, and not was istighfaru, seeking forgiveness. We know this is not a verb. Ibrahim, li abihi, for his father, illa, except an maw'idatin, from a promise. And is from maw'idah, is a promise. Wa'ad, from the word wa'ad, promise. So if you observe, so you have maw'idatin, wa'adaha, he promised it. Wa'ada. Expansion, wa'id. Wa'ada. Wa'ada is not wa'ad. Wa'ada. Wa'ada is wa'id. The root is wa'id. So the wa is an n. Wa'adaha, he promised it. No n. Iyahu, only him. وَمَا كَانَ اسْتِغْفَارُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لِأَبِيهِ إِلَّا عَنْ مَوْعِدَةٍ وَعَدَهَا إِيَّاهُ فَلَمَّا تَبَيَّنَ, then when, fa is then, lama is when, tabayyana, it is clear, lahu, for him, annahu, that he, aduwwu lillah, an enemy to Allah, aduwwun, an enemy, lillah, to Allah, tabarra'a, he freed himself, tabarra'a, he freed himself, this is tafa'ala structure, tabarra'a, he caused himself to be free, minhu, from him, inna Ibrahim, surely Ibrahim, this is nasab, because inna is suruf nasab, la awahun halim, la, definitely, awah, kind, halim, forbearing. And Ibrahim asking forgiveness for his sire, for his father, was only owing to a promise which he had made to him. But when it became clear to him that he was an enemy of Allah, he declared himself to be clear of him. Most surely Ibrahim was very tender-hearted, forbearing. وَمَا كَانَ اسْتِغْفَارُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لِأَبِيهِ إِلَّا عَنْ مَوْعِدَةٍ وَعَدَهَا إِيَّاهُ. And not was seeking forgiveness of Ibrahim was seeking forgiveness, no, seeking forgiveness Ibrahim for his father, except from a promise and a pledge only to him. This verse answers to a dubious thing, that why Ibrahim alayhi gave his uncle a promise of asking for forgiveness, saying, I will pray to my Rabb to forgive you. Surah Maryam, verse 47. Now, people do look through the Quran and they see contradictions in the Quran. How is it Nabi Ibrahim himself can seek forgiveness for his father, knowing that his father was an idol worshipper, and not only an idol worshipper, but also one who makes idols, right? So what's happening here, just because he promised, he is allowed to. وَمَا كَانَ اسْتِغْفَارُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لِأَبِيهِ إِلَّا عَنْ مَوْعِدَةٍ وَعَدَهَا إِيَّاهُ. The verse above indicates that Ibrahim's promise was the hope that he might be guided. Ibrahim, being a very tender-hearted person, indicated to his father that he would pray for his forgiveness in an effort to save him from the hellfire. Falamma, then when it was clear, tabayyana lahu, it was clear for him, tabayyana lahu, annahu, that he, aduwwul lillah, enemy of Allah, tabarra'a minhu, he cut himself off from him. So when it was clear, initially he did pray for him as promised, but when he realized that his father is an enemy of Allah's deen and thus cannot be sympathized by a friend of Allah, he dissociated him from him completely, abandoning any feelings or emotions for him. Ibn Abbas commented Ibrahim salam kept asking Allah to forgive his father until he died. When he realized that he died as an enemy to Allah, he dissociated himself from him. Similarly was said by Mujahid, Ad-Dahab, Qatada, and several others. Ubayd bin Umar and Sa'ad ibn Jubair said, Ibrahim salam will disown his father on the day of resurrection, but he will meet his father as he doesn't fatigue on his face. He will say, Oh Ibrahim, I disobeyed you, but today I will not disobey you. So we have see here remorse in the next world. There's hadith here, remorse in the next world. Ibrahim will say, Ya Rab, you promised me that you will not disgrace me on the day they are resurrected. What more disgrace than witnessing my father being disgraced? So it is attachment still there, right? And it's terrible to see your father in such a state. He will be told, look behind you, where he will see a bloody hyena from for his father will have been transformed into that. And it will be dragged from its feet and thrown in the fire. So it doesn't look like his father, it was a hyena, right? Another question is why Ibrahim prayed for him after his death, and he said, Oh, our Rabb, forgive me and my parents. So this is another dua in which Nabi Ibrahim say, Rabbana faghfirli wali walidayya. Faghfirli wali walidayya. So people, as mentioned, people look through various verses, and if this verse says that Nabi Ibrahim stopped making dua for his father, how come Nabi Ibrahim has this dua, even after the father has passed on? Rabbi firli wali walidayya. Rabbi firli wali walidayya. Note that the Arabic word wali, what is it? It's important to see the Arabic here. That's the word parents, fathers, and mothers. It's used for the biological father, while the term ab is used for either father, uncle, teacher, father-in-law, and grandfather. So the word ab. Right, the supplication of Ibrahim was for his real father, not for his uncle, who was a polytheist. So the Quran in its 11 verses refers to Ibrahim's uncle by using the word ab. Ya abati. That's what this word. So ya abati, ab. In order, it makes clear that Ibrahim had been under the guardianship of what kind of a person, but he had not been affected by it. All right. So here is a few things to consider. First of all, many scholars have said that that the father, the Ab, was not a real father, but an uncle. So here is a proof to show that he was an uncle and not a real father. So he was brought up by a man, an uncle who was a polytheist. But whatever the case is, right, despite being brought up by polytheists, Nabi Ibrahim did not follow their ways. He has been under guardianship of what kind of a person, but he had not been affected by that. So Allah guides him, and he became one of the best slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So many have said that it's not. So this is a proof, one verse that shows us that he is not the father. And also because of the scholars have mentioned that Nur of Rasulullah cannot be passed on to people who give partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is why they come to conclusion that the Abba of Nabi Ibrahim is not the real Abba, but the uncle. The surah is also called Surah Bara'ah, right? The surah of dissociation, right? Because Nabi Ibrahim here dissociates himself from his father. We are in Mecca, and people are saying, you are from our tribe, you should have allegiance to your tribe, and we are the children of Ibrahim. So here we come on to this kind of thing of talking about Ibrahim. They are always talking about Ibrahim alayhi salam, they are always talking about their forefathers and how they don't want to leave the religion of their forefathers. And yet Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam was one of their forefathers. So the first one to practice dissociating himself from the people that Allah commanded is your forefather Ibrahim. So in order to encourage people to still be part of the tribe despite themselves being Muslims, right, is to remind them that they are the children of Ibrahim. But Ibrahim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings up the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam to show that Nabi Ibrahim himself, right, dissociate his father from his father. So even in cutting ourselves off from you, so even in cutting ourselves off from you, we are reviving the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, who did bara'ah of himself from his father. So this one is a response to those people who are calling them to foster a good relation or to actually be loyal to their tribes, right? But they are saying that no, because Nabi Ibrahim himself cut off from his father, who was a polytheist. So they're not gonna they have cut off themselves from their family. Inna Ibrahima la awwahun halim. Surely Ibrahim is awwah and he is halim. Two things. Ibrahim was awwah, he kept going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the meaning of awwah. He would turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As despite being halim, extremely forbearing and compassionate and sensitive, particularly in family relations, he was able to break off from his uncle as he was always turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why. Right, so Allah mentioned that Nabi Ibrahim salam is awwah, always returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he is sensitive about his family members, but still he is able to cut off relations with his father, because the father is someone who has insulted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by giving him partners. He used to pray to Allah very often and with great sincerity. He was also clement, and he would forgive those who treated him badly. His father ill-treated him, but he was forbearing. Halim, right, is forbearing. He is gentle. He is kind. Right. Allah is the one who is lamenting, humble, weeping, grief-stricken, and God-fearing. So it means Allah. It means he goes on, talks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, very humble, weeping, right, frightened, always with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So and Halim is the one who can keep control of himself under all circumstances, and is neither beside himself in anger and enmity, nor transgresses the proper limits in his affections, friendships, and relations. The one who's Halim is able to be in control of himself, right? He gets angry easily, and with whoever, he builds limits in his affections. He does not transgress the proper limits. Here, both the words have been used in their comprehensive senses. Ibrahim alayhi salam prayed for his father because he was tender-hearted. So Ibrahim was tender-hearted and lamented for him that he would become the fuel for the fire of hell. So it's said that his uncle is going to be the fuel of the fire of hell. As he had full control over himself and was very forbearing, he prayed even for that father who had persecuted him cruelly in order to hinder him from the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lastly, he was God-fearing and did not want to go beyond limits in his love for his father, so he broke off all his relations with his father when he realized that he was an enemy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can see those verses there, right? Slowly, initially they were with groups were not very right, and then after they realize that they are those who are closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they move on. So that's Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, very kind, very gentle. Even if his father was bad, he keeps on praying for his father. But because Allah told him not to, that he is one person who does not go beyond, transgress limits set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so then he broke relation with his father because he realized that the father was an enemy of Allah. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِلَّ قَوْمًا وَمَا, and not was Allah to leave to stray. Li is to leave to stray. Yudilla is dal. Qawman ba'da idh hadakum, a people after when he guided. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِلَّ قَوْمًا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَاكُمْ حتى يبين, until he made clear. And you is he, bayina is in the nasab, because hatta is nasab word. Lahum, for them, ma yattaqun, what they should fear. Allahu, Allah, bikulli, with every shay'in thing, alim, all know. It is not attributable to Allah that He should lead a people astray after He has guided them. He even makes clear to them what they should guard against. Surely Allah knows all things. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِلَّ قَوْمًا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَاهُمْ. So Allah has guided people. Allah did not cause them to go to stray. Right? Allah doesn't make them go to stray. Those people who has been guided. Allah described His honorable self and just judgment in that He does not leave a people astray, but after the message comes to them, so that the proof is established against them. So He guides them, right? He doesn't bring them astray after when He guided them. So Allah is not the one who brings people astray after guidance has come. Hatta yubayyina lahum ma yattaqun, until it is made clear to him what they fear. Until it is made clear to him what they fear. So Allah makes clear beforehand that they should avoid such and such thoughts, deeds, and ways. So Allah makes it clear. If it is clear for you that they shouldn't be doing all this and you still want to do it, then you have left. You have disobeyed Allah subhanahu. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِلَّ قَوْمًا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَاهُمْ حَتَّى يُبَيِّنَ لَهُمْ مَا يَتَّقُونَ. But if they take no heed and persist in wrong thinking and wrongdoing, Allah withholds His guidance from them and lets them follow the wrong way they themselves choose to follow. Right? So they don't take heed and they persist in doing wrong, thinking wrong, then Allah don't allow them guidance. Just hold the guidance from them and leave them to do whatever they want to do. This is a general formula that helps understand those passages of the Quran in which Allah ascribes to Himself the guidance and the deviation of the people. Allah's guidance that He makes clear to them the right way through His prophets and books. Then He enables those who have the intention to follow the right way. On the other hand, He does not force and compel them to follow the right way if they themselves intend to persist in the wrong ways, in spite of the fact that the right way has been made clear to them. He rather enables them to follow the way they themselves intend to. All right. So on the other hand, He does not force and compel them to follow the right way if they themselves intend to persist in the wrong ways, in spite of the fact that the right way has been made quite clear to them. He rather enables them to follow the way they themselves intend to. All right. Allah does not force. He allows those who intend to be in the path of Allah to continue with the path of Allah. He will not force them and compel them to follow the right way, right? He has given the right way, He has shown the right way. He will not force us on the right way. If they themselves intend to persist in the wrong ways, in spite of the fact that the right way has been made clear to them, He rather enables them to follow the way they themselves intend to follow. So just He let them go, but they have made a choice. Allah, the Mighty and Sublime, is clarifying to the believers about not seeking forgiveness for the idolaters in particular and in general. So this one is about mentioning to them that the ruling is already there, that you should not pray for the idolaters, no matter how close you are to them. So Allah makes it clear to them that, seeking forgiveness for the disbelievers is wrong. It is an exhortation to beware of disobeying Allah and encouragement to obey. Right? protect people from disobedience to Allah subhanahu. So either do or suffer. Ibn Jarir commented, Allah says that He would not direct you to misguidance that you invoke Him for forgiveness for your dead idolaters, after He gave you guidance and directed you to believe in Him and His messenger. So Allah is not the one who directs us to misguidance. Then it's not like Allah make you misguided as you ask forgiveness from your dead idolaters. Allah will not misguide you such that you will start asking forgiveness for your dead idolaters. After He gave you guidance, He have given you guidance, right, that you should not dua for your dead idolaters, and directed you to believe in Him and His messenger. So you're given guidance, you're given direction on how to believe Allah and how to believe Rasulullah. In this case, this particular verse is talking, the previous verse actually was talking about not seeking forgiveness for the dead. So that was a guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and an example is given in Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, who did make dua while the father was alive, uncle was alive, and stopped when the uncle died. And yeah, also Nabi Nuh alayhi salam, when his son died, right? And then he asked Allah to forgive his son, and then Allah says, your son is not of you, right? Because he's not a believer. Firstly, he will inform you of what you should avoid so that you avoid it. Right? So first Allah tells you, don't do this. Right? It says, don't seek forgiveness for those who are the dead qualities. Before He informs you that this action is not allowed, you would not have disobeyed Him and fallen into what He prohibited for you if you have indulged in this action. So as we know, rulings comes about in stages, and this ruling of not seeking, don't ask for the mushrik, right, is in the year, in the Medina year, right? So all right, it's actually not allowed. You should not have disobeyed Him because it is not something which is made disallowed. So when you do it, you are not disobeying Him and doing something that is prohibited, right? Because you don't know that it's not, there was no ruling yet that it was not allowed. Therefore, in this case, He will not allow you to be misguided. Surely guidance or misguidance occurs after commands and prohibitions are established. That means if you abide by the commands, then you are guided. And if you go against what's established, then you are misguided. As for those who are neither commanded nor prohibited, they can neither be obedient nor disobedient in doing what they will do, neither ordered nor prohibited from doing. Right? So you don't know, you are not ordered about certain things, then you are not disobeying because you don't know about it. But if you know something, this is a ruling. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't dua for those polytheists who have died, and you still make that dua. That means you are acting against the injunctions, right? And justifying what you are doing. For those who were neither commanded nor prohibited, means they have got no sin for them because they are not commanded nor prohibited. So they can neither be obedient nor disobedient in doing what they were neither ordered nor prohibited, because there's nothing there to be ordered. Allah does not hold against people anything He has not made clear that they should avoid. He does not let them go astray because of certain actions unless these are of a type in which He has clearly forbidden them in it. Human knowledge is limited. It is Allah alone who has a perfect knowledge of things. Allah has made this religion easy to follow, explaining what should be done and what should be avoided with all clarity. He has left certain things without giving a clear verdict on them. This is done on purpose to make things easier for people. He has made clear that we need not ask about those matters where a clear verdict has not been given. So there are certain rulings which are not clear, so we shouldn't be asking questions, just leave it as that. So it is. Or else such questioning would lead to more restrictions. So we don't want more restrictions, so we don't question too much. Like for example, when Rasulullah SAW went for Hajj, the final Hajj, somebody asked him, should we do it every year? He didn't want to reply. Right? And then later on he says, if I had said yes, then it's going to be very difficult for all Muslims. Don't ask too many questions. Whatever it says, take it as it is. Hence, no one may forbid what Allah has not clearly forbidden. Allah is not one to misguide you after He has guided you. This now that the guidance has come, you shouldn't do it. So it's now Allah has guided you in not seeking forgiveness for your dead family members who are polytheists. You should not do it. For I didn't make it forbidden for it is forbidden at this point. This was about those people who embrace Islam. But before that, all the ordinances of the religion would be sent down. Before that, all the ordinances of the religion would be sent down. They died. That means their rulings are not there when they die. That means they die before the rulings come out. For instance, they prayed towards the first direction of Qibla, or they asked forgiveness for their fathers while they were polytheists, and the ordinances upon these subjects had not been sent down in time when they were living. So the rulings were not there when they were alive. So they will say, nor is it Allah to lead a person astray after He has guided them, until He makes clear to them what they would be aware of. Right? The purpose of the Holy Verse to lead astray here means to chastise and to take them into it. All right, so there's the opinions of scholars. All right, Therefore, they would not be chastised. Therefore, they would not be chastised for the lack of performing those ordinances as long as they were not conveyed to them. The reason of it is that they have believed in Allah and were not informed of those laws. So punishing a person for the sake of ordinances which were issued after them is far from Allah's justice, and as their theoreticians in law say, chastisement without statement is not permissible. There must be a reason for punishing. So here there is no ruling, so there is no punishment if you do certain things which doesn't seem to be good. Inna Allah bi kulli shay'in alim. Surely Allah with every single thing all know. Ibn Jarir commented, this is an encouragement for Allah for His believing slaves to fight the idolaters and chiefs of disbelief. Surely Allah in everything is all knowing. Every single thing He knows. No one can hide anything. They must believe that Allah knows all those who obey and those who disobey. Nothing escapes the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Believers must trust Allah and abide by His instructions. So that's it. Because Allah is all-knowing. He knows every single thing, what is being said, what is not being said, what are the rulings, why people obey certain rulings, why people disobey, why people are rebels, rebel against rulings, and fight against rulings, everything. Surely Allah Bikulli shay'in alim, with every single thing is all-knowing. Nobody can hide or even nobody can get knowledge without the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we say before our class visit ni ilman wa rizqni fahman. Allah increase us in knowledge and sustain us with understanding. All right, let's recite. ما كان للنبي والذين آمنوا أن يستغفروا للمشركين ولو كانوا أولي قربى من بعد ما تبين لهم أنهم أصحاب الجحيم وما كان استغفار إبراهيم لأبيه إلا عن موعدة وعدها إياه فلما تبين له أنه عدو لله تبرأ منه إن إبراهيم لأواه عليم وما كان الله ليضل قوما بعد إذ هداهم حتى يبين لهم ما يتقون الله بكل شيء عليم. Continue. What say? Yazir is he deviates. Ya is he. Present future tense like Rabbana la tuzigh qulubana. Do not deviate. Zara. Tuzigh. Zara. Zaya. Yazir. This is fi'il mudari. Rafa state. Wa rahubat. Rahaba is a root word, it becomes spacious. Right? The ta is a female ta. The it or she becomes spacious. Alright, Inna Allah, surely Allah, lahu mulkus samawati wal ard. For him is the kingdom of the skies and the earth. Lahu, surely Allah, lahu, for him, the kingdom of the skies and the earth. Yuhi wa yumit, he gives life and he causes death. Yuhi from the word hayya, yumit from the word maut. Inna Allah, lahu mulkus samawati wal ard. Allah emphasize that Allah is belongs to him the kingdom. So lahu, especially for him, is the kingdom of the skies and the earth. Yuhyi wa yumit, and he gives life and he causes death. It's the powers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa ma lakum, and not for you, min dunillahi, besides Allah, min waliyi, any guardian, wala nasir, and any help. And no help, no guardian, no help. Inna Allah, surely Allah, to him is the kingdom of the skies and earth. Everything belongs to him. Right? Kingdom of the skies and earth. It is also commanded for them to trust in Allah's aid, for he is the owner of the heavens and the earth, and not to fear his enemies. Allah owns all, he decides on all, and has power to do so. And has power to, so Allah can do whatever he wants to do. Okay? He decides whatever he wants to decide. That is of, he's able to do it. You hear what you meet. So we're supposed to remember Allah. Allah is the one who helps, right? And he's the owner of the heavens and the earth. You hear what you meet. He gives life and he causes death. Allah gives life. You know, none can give us life but Allah subhanahu. You should be grateful to Allah for this life. None can cause by death but Allah. We should not have any fear of any. It's the command for them to trust in Allah's aid, right? He gives life, so you know, no one can give life. Okay? It's Allah who has the power to give life. So you should be grateful for this life. And none can cause death but Allah. Only Allah causes death. You should not have any fear of anyone, but fear of your meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا لَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ مِن وَلِيٍّ وَلَا نَصِيرٍ, and not for you, besides Allah, any guardian and not a helper. Those who make the wrong choices should remember that they will have no helper or protector in the universe to save them from the consequences of their wrong choices and from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, these are the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is seen here, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses wali. Wali is one who guards and cares and everything, right? And Nasir is the one who helps. We should not rely on anybody besides Allah, and do not take the enemies of Allah as our shelter and our guardians. Surely they have no protector besides Allah, nor a protector, a supporter other than him. He knows that he ought not to take to task a person for the crime he has not committed. So Allah will not punish anyone for doing something which is not known whether it is right or wrong. Right, so we must always remember, have strong faith that we have no supporter and protector but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is not just your ultimate authority. The only one who can really rely on is Allah. So you need to understand that as a believer. لقد تاب الله على النبي والمهاجرين والأنصار للذين اتبعوه في ساعة العسرة. Surely, taubah is to taubat. Taubat also has a meaning of to turn to allow you to come back to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's accepted repentance. So who is the one who accepted the repentance? This is fi'al madi. Allah is the one who accepted it. وَلَقَدْ taballahu وَلَقَدْ تَابَ اللَّهُ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ, on the Prophet, والمهاجرين and the immigrants والأنصار and the helpers. الذين those اتبعوه they follow him في ساعة العسرة in the time of difficulty. لقد تاب الله على النبي والمهاجرين والأنصار الذين اتبعوه في ساعة العسرة. من بعد from after ما that kada almost يزيغ deviate قلوب فريق منه hearts of a party. قلوب فريق منهم of them ثم then تاب he accepted repentance عليهم. إنه بهم Ra'ufur Rahim. Surely he with them, Ra'uf, most kind and all merciful. All right, here we have a very long verse. Allah turned mercifully to the Prophet ﷺ and those who fled their homes, and the helpers who followed him in the hour of straitness. After the hearts of a part of them were about to deviate, and he turned to them clearly, surely to them he is compassionate and merciful. لقد تاب الله على النبي. So Allah allowed Rasulullah to turn back to him, to come to his presence. That Allah turned his mercy to Rasulullah should be understood with reference to the events of this expedition as a whole. Seems to be in line with what Allah said earlier to the Prophet ﷺ, may Allah forgive you. Why did you grant them permission before you had come to know who was speaking the truth and who were the lie? So we saw this in verse 43, right, in which Rasulullah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala start off with, may Allah forgive us for the wrong that he had done, which is to permit this polytheists, right, to do so. Allah forgive him, forgive you, may Allah forgive you. So you say Allah forgive him. And the question is, why did you grant them permission before you had come to know who was speaking the truth and who were the liars? So Rasulullah was told not to, was questioned why he asked for give them permission when you know who was speaking the truth and who were the liars. That was when some of them who were really able to join the expedition came to him with fabricated excuses and he allowed them to stay there. So that was the situation in the time of Rasulullah. Allah pardoned him for his attitude, which was based on his discretion. He told that it would have been better to wait until he had learned who really had valid reasons for staying behind. So he should really find out. This was the instant where he actually listened to these people. They were lying. He doesn't want to say anything, right? They start a quarrel or a fight, but just let him go. The bestowal of Allah's mercy is deserved for each major segment of Islamic society, starting from Rasulullah in the order of their status in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The status of people in the eyes of Allah is determined not by the criterion used by people in judging others, such as wealth, genealogy, education, capabilities, power, or influence, but is based solely on their contribution to and sacrifices for the establishment of Allah's deen in the society. All right, so there are a few reasons. Basically, do work hard for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it's for money, whether it's for race, whether it's for education, whether it's for power, influence, that we do things right, and everything will get into place. So Allah is that is not, but it determines a good person. Rasulullah is mentioned not because he made any mistakes, but because he was a bit short of the standard of perfection set for him when he was too like to the hypocrites in the matter of their lame excuses. So Rasulullah's name is mentioned not because he made a mistake, but it was a bit short of the standard of perfection set for him when he was too polite. So Allah started off that verse with Allah forgives Rasulullah. So it was a serious thing, right? To to be with them when they are not believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ الَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُ فِي سَاعَةِ الْعُسْرَةِ. And the Muhajirin and the Asr, those they follow him in the hour of difficulty. The next group is that of the Muhajirin who had made a higher sacrifice, second only to the ultimate sacrifice, martyrdom, a person can make for a cause or movement. They are followed by the Ansars who provide a home for the movement. Happily, by accepted Muhajirin as their brothers, provided them full support and helping the mission in all respects. So you have got the Muhajirs, the other people who migrate from Mecca to Medina, right, leaving nothing but only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we've got the Ansars who supported the Muhajirs and looked after them and allowed them to stay in their houses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acknowledges and appreciates the sincerity and support both provided in the test of the Tabuk expedition. So he brought them back to the Tabuk expedition and reminds them of the reality of the. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acknowledges and appreciates the sincerity and the support both provided in the test of the Tabuk expedition. So Allah will acknowledge, Allah appreciates those people who sincerely support so upon receiving this revelation, Rasulullah instructed the companions to get ready for to fight the Byzantines. Should be noted that here that the first engagement against the Byzantines was at the Battle of Mu'tah, which preceded the revelation of these verses. So there's the first fighting with the Byzantines. Hence, this order simply outlined a permanent course of action which a Muslim community should always follow. So it is in any situation, the Muslim must follow these rulings. This call to arms occurred at the height of the summer when the resources were scarce, the weather was extremely hot, and when fruits had ripened. At such a time, people would prefer to stay at home and do very little work. Traveling in the desert was almost unbearable. So it was out of the question. It was very difficult for them when Rasulullah announced that they would actually go to Tabuk. It was Rasulullah's habit whenever he intended to attack any people that he would not specify the particular place he was going to or the particular people he wanted to attack, hoping to take these enemies by surprise. This time, the difficulties presented by the journey made him inform the Muslims exactly where they were going, so that they could prepare themselves as best as they could for the difficult task. Rasulullah was informed that a group of hypocrites were meeting in the house of a Jew called Suwailim to discourage people and dissuade them from joining the expedition. He sent Talha ibn Ubaidullah with a group of his companions, giving them instructions to burn the house. So he got to know, Allah informed him of the meeting, and he sent his sahabas, right, to burn the house down. Talha carried out the Prophet's instructions. One of the people inside called Ad-Dahab tried to run away from the back of the house, and he fell and broke his leg, but later repented. So lessons to be learned. Rasulullah then gave orders to his companions to speed up their preparations and urged them with money and property to spend generously and to provide camels and horses for those who had bought. Many of those who were rich came forward with generous donations. The one who gave the greatest donation was Uthman ibn Affan. So this is about the war, right? Rasulullah has told them where it's going to be, and they know it's going to be very far. And so the companions come in to offer allegiance and also to give money. One report suggests that Uthman's donation was 1,000 dinars. It's golden coins, real gold. Rasulullah said, "My Rabb, I am be pleased with Uthman, for I am pleased with him." So Allah dua for Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu. Another report transmitted by Ahmad ibn Hanbal says when the Prophet ﷺ made his speech encouraging his companions to donate generously, Osman said, "My commitment is to provide 100 camels with all their equipment." As Osman descended upon one step from the pulpit, Osman made a further equal commitment. And the Prophet ﷺ came one step further down, and Uthman radiallahu anhu increased his commitment to 300 camels, fully equipped. So Rasulullah was so deeply touched by the donation made by Osman that he waved his hand to express his admiration. So that's why Osman is very rich, despite being rich, right? And he was very generous, being rich. He also said Osman will not suffer in consequence of anything he does in future. Rasulullah made a dua for Osman radiallahu anhu. Other reports mention the donations given by various people, each according to his means. The Rahman ibn Awf brought a donation of 4,000 dirhams. He said to Rasulullah, all I own is 8,000 dirhams. I brought one half and kept the other half. So this is Rasulullah calling for donations for the war. We're talking about the war itself, the Tabuk war. Rasulullah said to him, may Allah bless you for what you have kept and what you have donated. So dua, it's a habit of Rasulullah to make dua for those people who does good with him. Abu Aqil brought a quantity of dates and said, Ya Rasulullah, I have only some dates and I brought half of what I have, retaining the other for my family. The hypocrites spoke ill of him, saying he only did this to remind the Prophet of his poverty. So he sincerely wants to give his dates as to all that he has. He gave half of it and he kept the other half. But people are making fun of him, saying that he wants to just doing it so that Rasulullah reminds Rasulullah of his poverty, how poor it is, he needs support. Further asked, would Allah and His Messenger be in need of this amount of dates? Some Muslims are so poor that they would not find transport for themselves to join the army. There are those who are very, very poor, they cannot get, they don't have enough money to buy the equipment for war. There were 7 people, mostly from the Ansar, who could obtain neither a camel nor a horse. They therefore met Rasulullah SAW to explain their situations and requested him to provide them with some transport. Rasulullah SAW explained that he had nothing available. So they wanted horses or whatever that would help them to go across the desert because they're going up north to Tabuk, very far in a hot desert. So they're asking for a horse or even a donkey. All the horses and camels were ordered to other people, and he had none left. So he cannot give them because the others have come and taken it already. 7 men went back to their homes with tears in their eyes. They were made entirely helpless by their poverty. 2 of the 7 men, Abdul Rahman bin Ka'ab and Abdullah bin Mughafil, were still in tears when they met a man called Yamim ibn Umar. He asked them why they were crying, and they told them that they were prevented from joining the army by their poverty and the fact that the Prophet ﷺ did not have any spare camels to. He offered them a camel of his own to share within them and also gave them some dates to eat on their journey. Thus, they were able to join. So this is a story of those people who wanted to join so much and they had no means to join, but one of them actually was allowed to join Rasulullah because of his pleas. Another report speaks of another man called the 7 Elbah ibn Zaid. At night, knowing that he could not join the army, he prayed for a long while. So you see, although he doesn't get the opportunity, he still turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and prayed his tahajjud. He reflected on the situation and tears sprang into his eyes. So he thought about that he is not able to, he's not able to fight in the battle. Then he addressed Allah with his emotional prayer, my Rabb, you have commanded us to go on jihad and you have encouraged us not to abandon this duty. Yet you have not given me what I need in order to be able to go on this campaign. So he says, you ask me to fight and everything, but you don't give me whatever I need to fight. The messenger cannot give me any means of transport. So he complains to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I therefore give in charity to every Muslim any right which I hold against him for a wrong he has done to me, whether in matters of money or self or honor. So he made a declaration of giving charity to every Muslim any right. So he gives his whatever right he has on people, right? He gives it away, which I hold against him for a wrong he has done to me. So whatever wrong he has done, right, I give him my good actions, whether in matters of money or self or honor. The following morning, the man joined the dawn prayers as he always did. Rasulullah said, "Where is the man who was charitable last night?" Nobody. Rasulullah said, repeated the question and said, "I let this man stand up." Ilbas stood up and explained to Rasulullah what he has done. Rasulullah said, by him who holds my soul in his hand, this has been credited to you as zakat accepted by Allah subhanahu. For the other Muslims who joined him to march. There were about 30,000 in the army, many of the people of Medina and the Bedouin tribes in the surrounding area. Bedouin tribes in the surrounding area. So lots of them, 30,000 in the army. A few individuals among the Muslims did not join the army, although they did not entertain any doubt about the truth of Islam or their duty to be in. Among these were Ka'ab bin Malik, Murara ibn al-Rabi, and Hilal bin Humayyah, and also Abu Kaythama and Umair bin Wahab al-Jumahi. Rasulullah ordered his forces to encamp at a place called Thaniyatil Wada, just outside Medina, where Ubaidah ibn Ubay, known as the chief of the hypocrites, encamped with his followers separately a short distance and camp. So that one day we have there's Abdullah ibn Ubay also following behind. Right? They pretend to be Muslims because they are hypocrites. One report by Ibn Azhar suggests that his group was claimed to be of similar strength, but this was highly unlikely. So they had conversations on which group is stronger. Or other reports confirm that those who actually stayed behind were less than 100. When Rasulullah moved on, Abdullah bin Ubay stayed behind along with other hypocrites. Rasulullah and his army then started their march. The going was very tough indeed. It was only natural that among the 30,000 who were in the army, there were some who might not be able to face with the rest. Every time a man fell behind, his case was reported to Rasulullah. So they were marching and marching and marching on. If anybody lagged behind, Rasulullah will be informed. Every time the Prophet gave the same answer, leave him alone. If he's good, Allah will see to it that he will catch up with us, with you. So even if they fall down, just leave them because of the nature of the place. It is hard. If he is otherwise, good riddance. If it's bad, then let him go. We don't want him. If it's good, Allah will make it easy for him to come. At one stage of the journey, a man of no lesser standing in the Muslim community than Abu Dhar, one of the Muhajirin and also among the earliest of them to accept Islam, was falling behind. So there was a person as good as Abu Dhar who was falling behind. His camel was no longer able to keep pace with the army. So the camel was so exhausted, the camel cannot move. Some people went to Rasulullah to report the fact, but he gave them the same answer, leave him alone. If he's good, Allah will see to it that he will catch up with you. If it's otherwise, then good riddance. Abu Dhar gave his camel every chance to pick up strength. He then realized that it was useless and the camel was absolutely exhausted. Feeling that there was no alternative, Abu Dhar dismounted, took his belongings off his camel, and walked at a fast pace, hoping to catch up with the Prophet. So he actually left the camel. And he wants to catch up with us. He walks after that. So Rasulullah stopped for a while to allow the army a little rest. They stopped, gave Abu Dhar the chance to catch up. Someone standing near Rasulullah pointed to the direction from which Abu Dhar was coming and said, "Ya Rasulullah, there's a man walking alone in our trail." Rasulullah said, "Let it be Abu Dhar." When the man drew nearer, he said, "Ya Rasulullah, it is indeed Abu Dhar." Rasulullah said, "May Allah have mercy on Abu Dhar. He walks alone, dies alone, and will be resurrected alone." So it's a prediction concerning Abu Dhar. Mimba di makada, after what almost yaziro deviated their hearts of a people. Sorry. Qulubu fariqim minhum, hearts of a party of them. So ever the reluctance of some of them initially felt in their hearts was not appreciated. Right? They deviated, their hearts was deviated. Allah mentioned them, he's not happy with them having this deviation in their hearts. Because they overcame the initial reluctance, the reluctance have been mercifully forgiven. Because they were reluctant, and then they overcome their initially they were reluctant, they didn't want to follow, but eventually they overcome it, and so Allah forgave. Others listened to the hypocrites as they tried to dissuade the believers from going out to confront the Byzantines, whom they described as fearsome fighters. So you can see the hypocrites did a lot to discourage people from fighting against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's hard, it's useless, they're all strong, and there's no way you can fight them. So because you don't have strong belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you believe in Allah, you go out there for Allah, Allah will help you. Those, however, joined the army after their initial reluctance. Initially, they were a bit skeptical about the whole thing, but then eventually they joined. Final group of Muslims are those who, despite the sacrifices in the past, stayed behind at that difficult time. So there were some good Muslims who actually stayed behind without much good reason. Some of those who are already forgiven. As for turning in mercy to the Muhajirin and Ansar, the verse outlines its forces. They will explain what it's all about. Some of them were slow to join the Muslim army, but they joined as it marched. These were among the most sincere of believers. One of the few believers who stayed behind in Medina was Abu Haytham. Few days after the army had moved out, he went back home to rest on a day when it was extremely hot. So this one is in Mecca. We've got who stayed behind in Medina. So it was in Medina. His name is Abu Haythama. One day when the army has left, he went back home to rest on a day when it was extremely hot. He had 2 wives. At home, there were all the comforts one needed on such a hot day. Each of his 2 wives had prepared her sitting place in a well-shaded area of the yard. Each had prepared food and cold water for her husband. When he came in, he looked at his 2 wives and what they had prepared for him. He reflected a little. Then he said to his wife, Rasulullah is suffering the burning sun and the stormy wind, while I, Abu Haythama, enjoy the cool shade and delicious food in the company of 2 pretty women in my own home. This is unfair. See, I can't go on doing this. I can't be enjoying myself. Rasulullah and my Sahabas are all out there marching to fight. By Allah, I will not enter either of your 2 places until I've caught up with Rasulullah. So he swore that he will not be with his wives until he caught up with Rasulullah. Prepare some for me to keep me going on my journey. So when the food was prepared, he mounted his camel and went as fast as he could. He managed to catch up with the army until it arrived at Tabuk. So he was able to catch up with the army until it arrived. So it was quite fast. They were already ahead of him, and he tried his very best to catch up with them. Until they stopped at Tabuk, then he was able to catch up. On his way, Abu Haythama met Omar ibn Wahab al-Jumahi, who was also traveling fast to catch up with them. Apparently, Omar has some good reason for his delay to travel together until they were close to Tabuk. Abu Haythama and said to Omar, I have perpetrated something bad. It may be advisable for you to slow down a little while I catch up with the Prophet ﷺ. So he's advising. He was thinking something bad, so he was saying that he will go on ahead fast, so that Umar would slow down, right? And Umar slowed down, and Abu Haythama continued to travel at speed. When his figure was visible to the army encamping at Tabuk, some of the Prophet's companions drew his attention to the person traveling alone. Rasulullah said, let it be Abu Haytham. So when the men drew nearer, they said, Ya Rasulullah, it is indeed Abu Haytham. When he reached the place where Rasulullah was, he dismounted and greeted Rasulullah. Rasulullah spoke to him a phrase which implied warning. Interpreters suggest that it means that he, Abu Haythama, had brought himself very close to destruction, that is by not joining the army. Abu Haythama related his story, and Rasulullah prayed to him, to Allah to forgive him. All right, we'll take a break. We'll take stock here. اللهم ارحمنا بالقرآن واجعله لنا إماما ونورا وهدى ورحمة اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا وارزقنا تلاوته آناء الليل وأطراف النهار واجعله لنا حجة يا رب العالمين. اللهم أستودعك ما علمتني فردده إلي وقت حاجاتي إليه فلا تنسينيه يا رب العالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ربنا انفعنا بما علمتنا، ربي علمنا الذي ينفعنا، ربي فقهنا وفقه أهلنا وقرابات لنا في ديننا مع أهل القدر أنثى وذكر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. العصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلى الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.